few filmmakers merged wit, intelligence, and emotional truth with the acumen of Billy Wilder. Born in Austria in 1906, he fled Nazi Germany, arrived in Hollywood with nothing but ambition, and went on to write and direct some of the most influential movies ever made. Sunset Boulevard, Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, and Double Indemnity. But while his own work has been endlessly analyzed, Wilder himself remained guarded about what inspired him. Always dodgy when asked to name his favorite movies, Wilder would usually get out of it with a joke. Let critics worry about lists, not filmmakers. Yet in his later years, he opened up, revealing a handful of films that deeply moved him, shaped his worldview, and defined the kind of cinema he strove to make. These weren't just random picks. They reflected Wilder's whole creative philosophy: films that never bored, never lied, and never underestimated their audience. He admired directors who balanced art and entertainment, who used humor to reveal pain, storytelling to uncover truth. From post-war human drama to romantic comedies full of wit and restraint, his favorites remind us that behind Wilder's cynicism lay a profound faith in humanity. This video takes a look at 6 films that Billy Wilder himself called great, each a masterpiece that reveals something of his craft and character. Along the way, we'll hear Wilder himself and discover how these works echoed through his own films. Number 6. The Best Years of Our Lives, 1946. Of all the directors Billy Wilder admired, none moved him to tears quite like William Wyler. Though the famously sharp-tongued Wilder was rarely sentimental, he readily admitted that Wyler's The Best Years of Our Lives broke down his defenses. In a documentary about Wyler from the 1980s, Wilder remembered sitting in the dark, overwhelmed. "This is the only picture I ever saw where the film started, and 3 minutes later I was dissolved in tears, and I cried for 2 hours plus after that. And I'm not a pushover. I laugh at Hamlet." For a man known for cynicism, that admission spoke volumes of how profoundly Wyler's story had reached him. The Best Years of Our Lives was released in 1946 and told the 3 interwoven stories of the painful homecoming of American servicemen after World War II. Army Sergeant Al Stevenson, Sailor Homer Parrish, and Air Force Captain Fred Derry returned to a world that has changed without them, and to families who no longer know exactly who they are. Homer, who has lost both hands in combat, must face pity from neighbors and insecurity about his fiancée's love. Al is unable to shake off his disillusionment with his job at a bank, and Fred finds that wartime heroism means little in peacetime unemployment. He liked that Wyler did not glorify war or trivialize the process of recovery. The film's quiet realism, its concentration on emotional scars rather than on battle scenes, resonated with Wilder's own background as an immigrant who had escaped Nazi Europe. "A director's job," he once said, "is to hold up a mirror to life, but polish it so the audience can see themselves." Wyler had done just that. The deep-focus cinematography by Greg Toland, placing characters in multiple planes of action, was something that really fascinated Wilder. He would later use similar compositions in Sunset Boulevard to let viewers observe conflicting emotions within one frame. But what really impressed him was Wyler's compassion. He never condescended to his characters, Wilder said. He loved them, even when they were foolish. That empathy would become a hallmark of Wilder's own work, from the lovelorn clerk in The Apartment to the fading star in Sunset Boulevard. Even decades later, he could quote the film's dialogue from memory. "You remember it," he told a journalist, "because it was real, not sentimental." That's the difference between art and sugar. Number 5. Bicycle Thieves, 1948. Billy Wilder admired many things about European cinema, but what impressed him most was honesty, the willingness to strip away glamour and focus on ordinary lives. Nowhere was that honesty clearer than in Vittorio De Sica's Bicycle Thieves. Released in 1948, De Sica's film became the cornerstone of Italian neorealism, a movement that replaced studio artifice with street dust, real people, and the small tragedies of survival. Wilder, having fled Nazi Germany and built his career in Hollywood, immediately recognized in it something both foreign and deeply familiar, an understanding that dignity, not spectacle, is what keeps an audience's heart engaged. The story is almost unbearably simple. Antonio Ricci, an unemployed father in post-war Rome, finally finds work hanging movie posters. The job requires a bicycle, a luxury his family can barely afford. On the first morning, his bicycle is stolen. The rest of the film follows Antonio and his young son Bruno as they wander the city's markets and back alleys searching for it. That's all there is, no chases, no villains, just the slow disintegration of hope as they face indifference, corruption, and humiliation. When Antonio, in desperation, tries to steal another man's bicycle, he's caught in front of his son. The crowd beats him, but then releases him. A mercy that feels worse than punishment. Father and son walk away into the crowd, hand in hand, swallowed by humanity. Wilder saw in Bicycle Thieves the purest expression of storytelling economy. "You can't hide behind technique," he once said. "You have to believe in your people." De Sica believed completely. Using non-professional actors and real Roman streets, he erased the boundary between fiction and life. Wilder later tried to achieve a similar immediacy in The Apartment, in which ordinary office workers and elevator operators become the heroes. Like De Sica, he knew that if the truth of emotion is there, the audience will follow. He also admired De Sica's compassion for human weakness. Antonio's failure isn't treated as shameful. It's inevitable in a society built on scarcity. Wilder, whose own early years were spent hustling scripts across Europe, understood that same desperation. "Bicycle Thieves," he told a friend, "reminds me of Vienna in the 1920s. Everyone was hungry but trying to look respectable." Critics at times labeled Wilder cynical, but he thought cynicism was just another word for realism leavened with compassion. In Bicycle Thieves, he saw his philosophy take flesh, humorless yet humane, pretension stripped yet bursting with feeling. When in 1949 De Sica received an honorary Oscar, Wilder reportedly said that if Hollywood took anything away from that movie, we'd all be better storytellers and better people. As Cameron Crowe writes, Wilder summed it up best: "Great filmmaking isn't about the big ending. It's about what stays with you after." Bicycle Thieves, it stays like hunger. Number 4. The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. Billy Wilder was always fascinated with those directors who could marry vast spectacle with intimate psychology. For him, David Lean was one of the rare filmmakers who accomplished both. Though Wilder was known primarily for witty comedies and character-driven dramas, he deeply respected Lean's command of cinematic scale. And no film embodied that balance better than The Bridge on the River Kwai. Released in 1957, the film is set in a Japanese prisoner-of-war camp in Burma during World War II. British soldiers, led by the proud and principled Colonel Nicholson Alec Guinness, are ordered by the camp's commandant to build a bridge for the enemy. Nicholson, obsessed with maintaining British discipline and craftsmanship, convinces himself that constructing the bridge will boost morale. The story juggles this with the Allies plotting to destroy it. And when Nicholson finally realizes his pride has turned him into an accomplice, he stumbles toward the detonator and gasps, "Madness! Madness!" One of the most haunting last lines in film history. Wilder, who had watched the rise of authoritarianism in Europe, didn't view The Bridge on the River Kwai simply as a war epic. It was, for him, a study of human vanity. He loved that Lean would not divide the story into clear heroes and villains, a sentiment that echoes Wilder's own quotations. "Every man is right in his own mind." Nicholson's pride is a noble, fatal one, and the commando's mission of destruction has a moral weight all its own. Wilder loved films depicting people trapped by their own convictions, a feeling common in his own work, from Ace in the Hole to Double Indemnity. He also admired Lean's craftsmanship. Wilder felt that a director's camera should move only when the story does. Lean's swooping jungle vistas and bridge-building montages never seemed decorative. Every shot propelled the drama. Wilder told interviewer Cameron Crowe how Lean could make even the assembling of girders seem suspenseful. "He made you feel the sweat," Wilder said. That sense of tactile realism influenced how Wilder approached tension in his own films, not through pyrotechnics, but through ratcheting moral pressure. The movie also impressed him for its pace. At nearly 3 hours, it violated his famous rule, "Thou shalt not bore." Yet Wilder conceded that Lean earned every minute. The bridge's slow construction mirrored the psychological buildup, and its destruction provided release without catharsis. It's tragedy disguised as triumph, Wilder remarked. And that's the highest form of storytelling. When you watch a war film like The Bridge on the River Kwai, is it more its spectacle or its moral conflict that impresses you? Which has the greater impact on you? The bridge exploding or Nicholson whispering? Madness. Number 3. La Dolce Vita, 1960. Billy Wilder used to say that comedy was a weapon against despair way of looking at the world without succumbing to it. That's why he felt such an affinity for those directors who knew how to balance humor and melancholy, truth and spectacle. Federico Fellini's La Dolce Vita captured that balance, as few films ever had. Wilder, who admired those directors unafraid to break rules, found in Fellini a kindred spirit, an artist who dared mix satire, excess, and spirituality into one daring vision. A film released in 1960, La Dolce Vita follows Marcello Rubini, a gossip journalist, through 7 nights and days of Roman decadence. Marcello drifts from glamorous parties to religious processions, from movie stars to intellectuals, always in search of meaning in the chaos of modern life. Rome, captured by cinematographer Otello Martelli in luminous black and white, becomes both playground and purgatory. The structure of the film a series of loosely connected episodes, rather than a traditional plot scandalized critics, but electrified audiences. It closed with one of cinema's most haunting images, a young girl on a beach waving to Marcello from afar, a symbol of innocence he can no longer reach. Wilder admired La Dolce Vita for its audacity. "Trust your own instinct," he famously said. "Your mistakes might as well be your own." That motto could have been Fellini's as well. In interviews, Wilder often complained that Hollywood directors were too cautious, too eager to please executives. Fellini, he believed, had the courage to follow imagination wherever it led, even if it baffled some viewers. Fellini made the film he wanted, Wilder once told a friend, and people came to him. That's freedom. Thematically, Wilder felt very attached to the idea of moral exhaustion that lay hidden beneath all that glamour. A member of the Hollywood circle who had seen fame from within, he knew how Marcello the journalist covering parties without ever being among friends feels. Indeed, Sunset Boulevard, his very own film, dealt with similar themes. A cynical writer lost in a world of illusion, seduced by fame and yet repelled by it. "We both told stories about people drowning in champagne," Wilder said once in an interview. What also fascinated him was Fellini's ability to juggle tones. La Dolce Vita moves from comedy to tragedy, from absurdity to grace, sometimes in the span of a single scene. Wilder envied that elasticity. He once said that audiences should never know when to laugh or cry. That's when you have them. Fellini achieved that to perfection. For Wilder, La Dolce Vita was also proof that audiences could handle complexity. "An audience is never wrong," he used to say. "If they're bored, you made a mistake." Fellini didn't bore, he challenged. Wilder admired that the film provoked debate rather than comfort. It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, divided critics, and defined a generation's sense of post-war disillusionment. Decades later, Wilder described it simply: "It's about a man looking for something holy in a world of flashbulbs." I know that man. Number 2. La Grande Illusion, 1937. For Billy Wilder, no film expressed humanity's contradictions with greater grace than Jean Renoir's La Grande Illusion. Released in 1937, just before World War II erupted, Renoir's anti-war masterpiece portrayed soldiers from opposing nations not as monsters, but as men flawed, frightened, occasionally noble. Wilder was a refugee from Nazi Germany whose mother and family perished in the Holocaust. He knew the message of the film in his bones. He saw in La Grande Illusion a quiet prophecy that war doesn't just destroy armies, it dismantles illusions of class, of patriotism, and superiority. The story starts when 2 French aviators, Captain de Boldu, an aristocrat, and Lieutenant Marichal, a mechanic, are shot down by German forces and sent to a series of prison camps. Along the way, they befriend Rosenthal, a wealthy Jewish officer whose generosity and optimism lift morale. Eventually, they're transferred to a medieval fortress commanded by Captain von Rauffenstein, Erich von Stroheim, a cultured German aristocrat who treats his French prisoners with civility. What follows isn't a traditional escape adventure, though. An escape does happen. It's a film about respect and futility, about how men of different nations share more with each other than with those supposedly on their own side. The war, Renoir suggests, is merely a machine grinding everyone down. Wilder admired Renoir's restraint. He never shows the war, he told a friend, only the people who must live through it. That understatement influenced Wilder's own approach to drama. In Stalag 17, his 1953 prisoner of war film, Wilder borrowed Renoir's sense of irony and camaraderie, the idea that humor and despair could coexist in the same barracks. He even cast the sardonic William Holden as a cynical hero who, beneath his sarcasm, carried Renoir's moral seed, compassion. He loved, above all, Renoir's sense of balance. La Grande Illusion could have been a sermon, but it never feels didactic. Von Rauffenstein's friendship with Diboldu is tragic precisely because they recognize their shared obsolescence. Both belong to an aristocratic world fading away, replaced by mechanized war and mass democracy. The war will end, von Rauffenstein says, but our kind will be gone forever. For Wilder, who chronicled America's post-war moral dislocation in The Apartment and Sunset Boulevard, that line was prophetic. He often quoted it when discussing how quickly power and privilege can vanish. The technical subtlety of the film also appealed to Wilder's obsession with precision. Renoir's camera glides softly, allowing the audience to decide upon what to focus. Wilder told Cameron Crowe that Renoir lets the camera breathe, something Hollywood rarely allowed. He admired that Renoir didn't dictate emotion, he invited it. When Marichal and Rosenthal finally make their escape across the snow into Switzerland, Renoir keeps the focus on their smallness against the landscape, emphasizing vulnerability over victory. That quiet humility echoed through Wilder's own work. Think of the closing shots of The Apartment or Some Like It Hot, where love feels fragile but real. Wilder often joked that if he could steal one movie and put his name on it, it might be La Grande Illusion. It says everything, he remarked, and nothing extra. For a man who built his reputation on sharp dialogue, Wilder respected that silence could be the truest eloquence. Number 1. The Shop Around the Corner, 1940. If Billy Wilder had a cinematic god, it was Ernst Lubitsch. He referred to him as the Mozart of movies. And after Lubitsch's death in 1947, Wilder pinned a sign above his office door. How would Lubitsch do it? A daily reminder of the elegance and wit he strove to match. More than any other director, Lubitsch shaped Wilder's philosophy of film. Show, don't tell, imply, don't explain, and never underestimate the audience's intelligence. Of all of Lubitsch's films, none captured that delicate touch better than The Shop Around the Corner. Released in 1940, the film takes place in a small leather goods store in pre-war Budapest. Alfred Kralik, James Stewart, is the store's top salesman, meticulous, polite, and perhaps a little proud. Clara Novak, Margaret Sullivan, is the spirited new employee who seems to disagree with him about everything. They bicker over music boxes and customers' tastes, unaware that they're actually anonymous pen pals who have fallen in love through heartfelt letters. When Alfred discovers Clara's identity, he hides the truth until Christmas Eve, when the pair finally confess their feelings in one of cinema's most tender finales. He loved The Shop Around the Corner for encapsulating all that he admired in Lubitsch: the subtle humor, the emotional restraint, the moral decency. Ernst could do more with a closed door, Wilder once said, than most of today's directors can do with an open fly. It was his famously mischievous compliment about Lubitsch's gift for suggestion. Where other filmmakers relied on broad gestures, Lubitsch trusted timing, silence, and glances. Wilder absorbed those lessons early. He co-wrote scripts for Lubitsch, including Ninotchka, and credited him for teaching him how to make comedy with heart. The film's visual economy also impressed him. Wilder believed every shot should serve two purposes: to tell the story and reveal character. Lubitsch's framing often keeps doors, mirrors, and counters between people visually expressing emotional distance long before they speak it aloud. Wilder borrowed that technique repeatedly. Think of the office partitions in the apartment or the half-closed blinds in Double Indemnity. He once said, "Lubitsch made comedies about serious things. I make serious films that happen to be funny." Late in life, when asked what the Lubitsch touch really means, Wilder smiled and replied, "It means making an audience feel smart." That credo defined his own directing style for the rest of his career. What's striking about Wilder's list is how little it resembles the glossy Hollywood canon so often celebrated today. His heroes weren't blockbusters or box office sensations, but films of emotional precision and craftsmanship. To him, cinema wasn't about explosions or technology. It was about the craft of revealing truth through story. That belief sustained him across 5 decades and continues to inspire filmmakers who still hang his motto above their desks. How would Lubitsch do it? As Wilder once joked, "If you can make someone laugh for a second and think for a minute, you've done your job." The 6 films he loved most still do exactly that.